How many of you hear the words or phrases bylaws, stewardship, tithing, or board of directors and want to run for the hills? Maybe you feel like I once did when I used to say on a regular basis, listen, I come to church for inspiration and to be spiritually uplifted, not for church politics. Honestly, I still don't like church politics, but I've come to understand several things about the business of church. First, if we live our lives from principle and not personality, then there doesn't have to be church politics in our community. Second, there are no magical angels sent down from the heavens to run the day-to-day operation of church life. You know, the little things like pay the bills, pay staff, pay the minister, figure out and provide music, update the website and social media pages, fundraise, maintain the grounds, update and maintain the building, create the worship service, ensure the financial well-being of the community, create workshops, provide hospitality, create bulletins, greet guests, create programming, provide pastoral care, and so many more things. I mean, even something as simple as setting the temperature to ensure everyone is comfortable while attending service takes someone to take that on. All of the behind-the-scenes effort is quite considerable. I once heard a community member say that they didn't understand why a minister would need to be on a full-time salary when they only work an hour or two at the most on a Sunday. I gotta tell you, it made me shake my head and smile and think to myself, oh, if only she knew what it takes. Today, I thought it would be good to share with you the business of church, the business of a spiritual community, so that you have a better understanding that community doesn't only happen on a Sunday. A spiritual community has several components that are necessary for it to thrive. Yes, there is a huge spiritual component requiring a spiritual leader that is steeped in principle and love, who is able to guide the community in the evolution of consciousness. But a spiritual home requires financial commitments to support the mission and vision of the community, and a level of business acumen and stewardship is vital to manage the resources that we have been blessed to have, ensuring that they are used wisely. How this all comes together is through a system called polity. Polity is simply the term for denominational governance. Every religion has rules that govern how the organization operates and the understanding of spiritual laws and principles that support its worship. In polity, you can find the ethical rules that govern each minister and spiritual leader. There are departments within the governing body that manages or supports things like the education and credentialing of spiritual leaders, education of our communities, youth ed programs, organizing and facilitating conventions, structures of the regions, and then having regional reps, and so much more. The bylaws tell an organization how it needs to be governed. As a nonprofit organization under the Unity Movement's 501c3 status means that we have to adhere to the bylaws to maintain our Unity Church status. Now, I even did a little bit more research, and I went on the website 501c3.org, and it states this: a nonprofit's bylaws are considered a legal document that dictates how the organization must be governed. Failure by the board to follow the stipulations outlined in the bylaws can have devastating consequences to the organization and potentially even to the board members themselves, end quote. You see, if we do not follow the bylaws, we could lose our tax exemption as a church. So this is why every minister talks about the importance of the bylaws. We must adhere to them to be able to be in integrity with our governing body. Of course, bylaws can be changed as long as the rules of changing them are adhered to, which usually requires a 2/3 majority vote by the membership, and that usually happens at the annual meeting. Now, the policies and procedures are written by the minister and the board of directors to help the community carry out the tasks that will support the operations of running the business of the spiritual community, as well as how to accomplish the tasks that will keep us in alignment with the bylaws. The policies and procedures should be regularly updated as more effective ways of doing things become available. Now, what I've just explained is an overview of the business of church, of the business of running a spiritual community. I think it's important for you to know this information to be able to be in discernment about what's next for this community. I'm also inviting you to our training session. We're having a training session on October 17th. That's a Saturday from 10 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon with a 30-minute break for lunch. And what we're going to do is to discuss the business side of a spiritual community in more detail. And I'm opening up this training for everyone who's a member of this community to attend, regardless of if you want to serve in any capacity. There are several reasons people usually don't volunteer to be on a board. One is they don't understand how a board of directors functions in a healthy way, or they felt overwhelmed by the job because they were never trained in how to do it well, or even they did it one time and they had such a horrible experience that they vowed never to do it again. I know some of you may have been on the church board in the past, but my experience has been that not many board members have been trained in good business practices to be successful, to work together in a healthy way. They've just kind of had to figure it out as they went along. Well, this is your opportunity to get more information and see what healthy board governance and functioning can look like, and then discern if this is something that you may want to be involved with in the future. Consider it a free look behind the curtain with no obligation to purchase or sign up. The other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is what a ministry that is in transition is about. So a ministry is considered to be in transition when it's without a spiritual leader, or it had a significant event occur within the life cycle of church. The loss of leadership or a crisis places the community in a state of flux and unknowing. So guess what? Here at Unity of Richmond East Bay, your community is in transition. Many communities don't really like being in transition because it's uncomfortable and there is uncertainty about the community's direction. But there are many common ideas that come to mind during this time in a church's life cycle, because members are grappling with figuring out what the community should do to thrive and be sustainable during this time, during this event. So here are some of the basic things that the majority of communities that are in transition think needs to happen. First, there is this desire for a dynamic minister that gives amazing and inspired talks. The minister also does community outreach, possesses strong leadership and administrative skills, provides loving pastoral care, and creates innovative programming. The second idea that always comes up in communities during this time is that it's important for the community to grow. The third belief is that a friendly church grows the size of the community. And the fourth desire is that our children are our future, and we've got to do something about it. So let's take these in order. Let's look at the first desire that most communities have during this time, the desire for a dynamic minister. A dynamic minister is also attracted to a dynamic community that understands the community can only thrive if everyone takes ownership of its well-being. Also, a dynamic minister has their own expectations of living an abundant life. I did some more research and I took a look at the average full-time minister's salary, and not including benefits. The range for the salary is from $40,000 for someone like just coming out of seminary up to $110,000 per year. Our movement has a strong foundation in prosperity principles, and often that is not reflected in how our communities make financial commitments to ministers, ministries, and programs. You see, sharing of one's time, talent, and treasure is vital to helping your spiritual community to thrive. We're talking about an energetic exchange, which is really a spiritual law. Our own personal growth, abundance, and spiritual development necessitates that we share our gifts. If you want more money, give more money. If you want more love, give love. If you want more joy, share joy. It's the knowing that what you give is returned to you in greater ways. And if we share in a collaboration with others, energetic exchange is even higher because the vibration of this combined energy expands. The second desire most communities have is to grow in membership. Don Hotchkiss is a consultant and an author of the best-selling book Governance and Ministry, which many ministers use as a primer for how to govern. He writes a blog for Alban Institute, and he writes this: in many churches, especially stable or declining ones, leaders act surprised if you ask whether they want growth. Of course we do, they say. This is the biggest lie of all, and the most innocent. Consider what it means to want your church to grow. For established members, growth means taking away the church they love and replacing it with something that feels strange and alien. Everybody knows me in a small church, but a big church has many people that maybe even the pastor won't know who I am. The only reason a sane person would want a church to grow is because they believe it has something of importance to offer other people. For that goal, some people will accept the hard work, sacrifice, and inconvenience growth requires. End quote. Yeah, growth demands things change. We cannot be the same community we were in the 90s or the 00s or the 2010s. Emotionally and spiritually, we are different now. Even technology, how we operate effectively, has changed. It means for us to thrive, we must include new technology, new systems, even people who may think differently than we do. Or we do have another option. We can decide we want things to remain as it is, as it was in the past, which means this community will continue to fizzle on, treading water, until it's time to close. And this means all your hard work and commitment over the decades goes simply to UWM headquarters in Missouri. That's what's happened to the other communities that have closed down. The third thing that church members believe is that friendly churches grow. Don Hotchkiss, again, gives us some insight on how this outpictures in many churches. He writes this: a visitor who gets a friendly greeting is more likely to return. But most church consultants know that the more vehemently leaders say their church is friendly, the more likely it will feel quite cold to visitors. When people say, "Our church is friendly," generally they mean, "My friends are here." Visitors to friendly churches see the backs of people's heads gathered in tight, impenetrable groups of friends. End quote. I've personally witnessed this in many Unity communities, and I've had visitors tell me members initially seem to be welcoming, but they can't seem to make friends, and this is one of the main reasons for them attending a spiritual community. You see, it's important for people to feel a sense of belonging and that their spiritual community truly loves and cares about them, not just on Sunday for an hour. The fourth is, the children are our future. Hotchkiss reminds us that the chief benefit of having a strong young people's ministry is not because our children will grow up to join our church. How many adult members of your church grew up in your Sunday school? Thanks to mobility, intermarriage, competition from new congregations, if it's more than 5%, you're the exception. Having a strong ministry with youth and children is important for your congregation's growth, not because your children will grow up to join your church, but because a strong children's program is the key to attracting your fair share of other people's children. Congregations grow because they engage people now, not decades in the future. End quote. This talk today is about church life. It's to encourage you to think about, what are you willing to let go? What are you willing to take on? What are you willing to do to create a thriving community? I can tell you that I've reached out to the previous minister of the Tri-Valley community to see if she still had the membership list so that I could invite them to our services. Unfortunately, she didn't retain the list. I've also joined the ministers' regional meeting to collaborate with other ministers. I've even registered to attend the West Central Region Minister Leadership Conference that's happening next week. And I'm doing this to become more aware of what's on offer for this region. This isn't part of my job description, but I know it's important for a community's well-being to bring its energy to the table so other people can see it, so we can get steeped and connected. I also know that I cannot do this alone, that it's going to take each and every one of us to do our part. So I'm asking you, as a member that loves this community, what's your part? What's yours to do? So I invite you again to join us on October 17th, Saturday at 10 a.m. It's going to be on Zoom, same Zoom channel that you tune in on Sundays. That's the same one that you can tune into on October 17th for training on the business of church. I look forward to seeing you then.